Hey, my beautiful bitches, it's me, Fiona St. James, and welcome to another episode of Fiona's Coffee Talks. And as always, I like to start off every day with a fresh, hot, black cup of coffee. Hold the cream! I'd love to. And of course, I think of my favorite quote of the century by Oscar Wilde, which says, "Life is too important to be taken seriously." So lighten up, folks. So today's topic is, drumroll please, retail time part 7. Yay! All right, so when we last left off, I was talking about like doing skincare. I think the last thing was strivectin. So then what ended up then happening was around 2009 or so, I actually left New York and ended up in California. I went to Palm Springs. Was out there for about a year. Like 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. So then when I came back to New York, I wasn't necessarily thinking about doing retail again, but then an opportunity came up and a dear friend of mine, she was like, girl, like, come work for me. So I was like, all right. But then when I went to the luncheon for that, as it turns out, Lady Gaga was coming out with her new fragrance. So they were looking for a business manager, Lady Gaga and Isaac Mizrahi. And those were going to be like the two new big designers that were like coming out with fragrances. So the divisional of cosmetics and fragrances, she was like, oh, Fiona, you should go for that. She was like, I think you'd be a good fit for it. So, and I wasn't like necessarily looking to like be in management again. I just kind of thought, let me do this to make a little extra money. So I went on the interview. I ended up getting the job. We did well. But then the whole thing that happened was the same thing that happens every time. Macy's got it first. So they actually launched it probably about a month before we got it at Bloomingdale's. So then, by the time we got it, because it was Lady Gaga and she like had even done an appearance there, they had sold a lot of it. So, I mean, we did okay, but they wanted us to do these major numbers, which, excuse me, how could we if it's already like been out and anyone who wanted it, like pretty much got it right off the bat. And, Macy's, excuse me, they were also known for always having like a lot more gifts with purchase than like any other department store. So what they were giving away with what you would buy, just buying one bottle of fragrance, by the time we were selling it, we didn't have the same thing that they had, because then you would always hear customers say, oh, well, they give me more free stuff at Macy's. So then how are we supposed to compete with that? Now, the fragrance itself, let's talk about that. The coloring was like, it was like this brown liquid. I was like, is this soy sauce? Is it the fragrance? What like, ooh. And other than the fact that like the packaging was kind of gimmicky and and it had her name, I didn't honestly think that the fragrance smelled all that good. So, which for me, like whenever, if I'm going to work for a company or a particular manage a company, whether it's skincare, fragrances, or cosmetics, I like to believe in the product and actually, enjoy it. But I can't honestly say that I thought it was any good. I mean, I really didn't think it was. But what was good was how much they were paying me, because but when they offered me the job, I almost kind of like didn't want it. So when they asked me how much I required pay wise, I went for this very extravagant number thinking, oh, good, they're going to tell me, go to hell, bitch. And instead they were like, okay. And I was like, what? So, I mean, we did the promotion. We did well, all things, considering. And I remember in particular, the last night of the promotion, it was like some big event was happening in the store. And that particular last day, we did like 3-4 times more than what we were averaging each day leading up to that. So when all was said and done, even though they wanted us to do this much, we ended up doing like that much, which wasn't terrible, but it wasn't what they expected. But what do you expect, or how can you expect that? Shit don't smell good. It's gimmicky. Macy's had it first. She even did an appearance there, which was this huge to do. So how was Bloomingdale supposed to compete with that? So unfortunately, it didn't last very long. We had our main counter, and I remember we started we launched it maybe like July, August. And honestly, by like January, we were just like in a shelf, like in the back somewhere. And it was like, we had uh, these gift sets left. And I remember the other thing that happened was it was one day where it was like, it had been reduced and then it was like triple discount for the employees. So like all of the employees bought them. So like we sold out of it and we were able to get rid of the inventory. But pretty much after that, like I was with them maybe 6, 7 months, and then they couldn't even justify like having a manager or like, paying anyone to really be there representing it. So it was just pretty much like on a shelf. And it's like, if anyone wanted it, they would just grab it and whoever would ring it up. So, and then I think that lasted maybe like 2, 3 months and then it was out of the store. So unfortunately, even though Lady Gaga is a big name and everyone, loves her music, and I think everyone was having high hopes, it just didn't do well. And I don't necessarily think it did well anywhere. And I remember like reading interviews about it afterwards where I think because she was like at such her height at that point, when you become that big that fast and suddenly everyone wants a piece of you. So then they would like do a fragrance. And I kind of felt like the timing for her to do it at that point, I kind of felt like she rushed it, or like just because they probably put this pressure on her for her to actually have it. And I don't know how much, these designers who put their name on a fragrance, how much they actually have to do with picking out what style, what scent, For myself personally, I always prefer fragrances that are a little on the lighter side. This was definitely on like the heavier, spicier side, but I can't even tell you what the notes were that were in there. I just know that when all was said and done, whether you first sprayed it or once it like went through the changes and dried down, at any stage of it, I was like, huh? And then like brown, like I just don't understand who would want to spray a fragrance on themselves that aesthetically speaking was that color, because you think of brown shit and you think of, I'm gonna spray that on myself. It reminds it reminded me of Estee Lauder had this fragrance called Youth Dew, which was also brown and smelled disgusting, and I used to call it residue. I never came up with a name for hers, but frankly, it didn't last long enough for me to even try to think of anything. But I will say they gave us these Lady Gaga shirts that have these like fabulous shoulder pads and like a scoop neck, and it was intended for the women to wear. Well, honey, Fiona's close enough. So I would wear like my black crew neck t-shirt and then wear that over that. So whereas like all these other guys were like in suits and whatnot, I'm wearing this Lady Gaga shirt, alone. I had one female worker. So she and I would sit there wearing our cute little shirts. So, I mean, that part of it, I liked the outfit. And I actually kept the shirt. I have it in my dresser. She probably should have worn it, but too late now. Anyway, so that was my Lady Gaga. So, I mean, it was fun while it lasted. I did make a whole lot of money because the one thing that the company did do was, because they kept putting us in promotion, they were good about like paying me the amount that I asked per hour. But then once I passed the 40 hours, I was at time and a half. And there were a lot of weeks there that I was putting in like 55, 60 hours. So my paychecks were ridiculously huge. So I was thankful about that. And honestly, kind of thankful about the fact that like, they suddenly were like, we don't need you anymore. And I was like, good, because I've about had it with this shit anyway. So anywho, that's my Lady Gaga story. Sorry, girl, I love you, but your fragrance. So don't forget, thumbs up, subscribe if you have not. Tell all your friends. You can read all about it in my book, The Life and Crimes of Fiona St. James, which you can get at FionaSt.James.com. The Saints is not spelled out, ST instead, no period after that. And I write all about the 25 years that I did retail, which was from 92 to 2017. This Lady Gaga happened, I guess, around 2011, 2012. So then the next one will be the final one where I tell you about what happened there. And that brings me to the end of that series. All right, guys, speak to you soon. Speak to you soon. Listen to me. See you soon. Love yous. Bye.